thought it was interesting. I think it was Bitcoin when it did its correction here recently. Might have been this one here. Just this recent correction. Guys, notice that is a very weak market where we can't even bounce back to 38.2. So, and of course, where's the RSI? It's nowhere near its 50 line. I actually, I was at the point last night where I was actually ready to strap on a short here. Of course, these are my funny, crazy time frame charts, Tesla charts. I hate to say it, folks, but 3 lower highs, that still seems to be working. And this is almost exactly what they did here. Remember, Josh, do you remember about halfway through that day? Josh put out a tweet showing, oh boy, look at this huge green candle. And then we had a couple comments in the lounge. It was interesting. Julian and I both commented side by side that, this does not look very happy, folks. You better be careful here. And sure enough, the floor fell out the other side. Well, I don't mean to be weird. Excuse me, I don't mean to be rude, but it looks like the same damn thing's happening here. So last night, and actually, this is an interesting view that I did here. I actually even tweeted this out. So if we back up a moment and we just zoom out a little bit, I do think that there is a huge bearish harmonic at work. And it goes from the peak there back in May. You remember that Chris guy, he had his birthday somewhere in here, and that was basically the top of the market, eh? So, but anyway, just this most recent peak, and actually interesting how these wicks really were the top end of the range there, right? So I think you could make the argument that even right from this level right there, there's basically the top end of your range. So when I saw this M, and make a note of this, folks, make a note of this. This is so valuable. This M here, when you saw that fire, you should have been like, oh my goodness, that is a brick wall of resistance now. And if we look at it on things like Tesla 4-hour charts, not only was this a double top, it was a triple top. 1 high, 2 highs, 3 highs, loss of the lows, look out below. This is literally going to be a brick wall of resistance now going forward, no doubt about it. You might, if we're lucky, get stabs up into this area, but because, you can imagine how many trap bulls, and even in here, trap bulls. If we get any kind of counter trend rally up into this area, all of those trap bulls are going to be like, oh, thank God, get me the hell out of there. So there is a lot of trapped liquidity up in here. Also, too, with that massive structural failure, probably a lot of guys who went short there, and they just said, look at risk to a break of this, because I listened to that Beamish guy, and he said there's a whole bunch of trap bulls here that if they get any chance, they're going to get out and price will be rejected on a test of those levels. So I'm going to short here, and I'm going to let this guy here who stopped the bull, this guy here who stopped the bull, and this guy here. And also, too, notice that that's a really well-defined head and shoulders top there. So all 3 of these guys who stopped the bull, I'm going to let them defend the trade, and I'm going to put my stop loss right up here. So what that means is that, down the road, probably what ends up happening here is there is your trend line, and you might get like counter trend rallies that dip up into that trend line. But this market will not be a buy until we actually break the trend line and put a W in, i.e., there is increased demand above this trend line. And what I think probably happens here, we've talked about how this is going to go on into the end of the year and probably through a good chunk of next year. What I think happens is that this trend line is basically a brick wall of resistance, but over time, it will get lower and lower and lower and lower until finally it's broken, but probably broken at a much, much, much lower level, right? So if I just go like that, and let's make it nice and big so everybody can see it. Like that. Then we'll go like that. Then we'll go like that. So there is that trend line. Oh yeah, perfect. So you can see, look how the market rallied back up into it and then just smacked right off it. So you can already start to see this trend line's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. And as we've said before about trend lines, this market really isn't a buy until we actually get on the other side of it. And actually, it probably won't look like that. Get on the other side of it and then go put in your W and away we go. Now, what I'm worried about here is that we could very easily just walk our way, down this trend line. And, we're thinking that the bottom here is around 10 Gs. So ultimately, there's where your buy signal comes in. Again, break this trend line, W on the other side of the trend line. And also, too, kind of makes sense that basically that, I don't think that it looks like this. It'd be interesting if it did look like this, but I don't think it will. I think it'll probably look more like, well, actually, I mean, that's actually not a bad prediction. It'll probably look more like that kind of thing. But the point here is that this market's a buy once we W out on the other. You want to make it really, really, really simple for you. I think actually you could probably just use that one line, right? And I think that's actually off of that peak right there. That's this consolidation. You just say that Beamish Gas says Bitcoin will be a buy, and probably crypto in general will be a buy when we W out on the other side of that trend line. Yeah. Wow, what a great analogy of that conversation. Can you guys see that? You see how incredibly important that is? And if you want to sort of use momentum to validate, notice how as we were coming into this line, what concepts actually came alive here. As we were coming into this line here, which I think was a major brick wall of resistance. Do you see how these dips and all of these highs here just made higher, 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 and yet lower and lower and lower and lower and lower. And wow, look at this M right here, just the most prettiest M in your RSI, right off of that level. I mean, just like uber divergence, right there and right there. And right at that trend line, as soon as we failed, look out below.